You know the feeling. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence at dinner. Your colleague takes credit for your idea in the meeting. Your partner makes plans without consulting you. Again. And what do? You smile. You nod. You tell yourself it's not worth the drama. But here's what's actually happening. Every time you accept disrespect, you're not keeping the peace. You're signing away pieces of yourself. You're teaching people exactly how to treat you. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something 5 centuries ago that most people still haven't grasped. Power isn't given. It's taken. And respect. Respect is nothing more than the recognition of power. Today, we're going to explore why people disrespect you, the exact psychological mechanisms that allow it to continue, and most importantly, how to become the kind of person who is simply impossible to disrespect. This isn't about becoming aggressive. It's about becoming dangerous in your stillness. There's a difference. Let's begin with the uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding. Disrespect doesn't announce itself. It arrives wearing a mask. It's the friend who's always 20 minutes late to your meetings but somehow arrives on time for everyone else. It's the family member who interrupts your stories but demands silence for their own. It's the romantic partner who checks their phone while you're sharing something important. These aren't accidents. They're measurements. Human beings are tribal animals. We're hardwired to establish hierarchy. Within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, your brain has already calculated where they rank relative to you. Are they a threat? Are they an opportunity? Can they be used, or must they be respected? This happens beneath conscious awareness, but it's happening constantly. When someone tests your boundaries, they're conducting an experiment. They're throwing a small pebble at your fence to see if it holds. If you ignore it, if you rationalize it away, you've just given them data. The fence is weak. They can push harder. Machiavelli wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, too few to come in touch with you. People don't respect your inner qualities. They respect your demonstrated boundaries. Think about the last time you felt genuinely disrespected. Go back to that moment. What happened immediately before? I'll tell you what happened. There was a smaller disrespect that you ignored. The person who explodes at you today is the same person who made a subtle jab last week that you laughed off. The person who betrays your confidence now is the same person you continued confiding in after they gossiped about someone else. You were given warning signs. You chose to ignore them because confrontation is uncomfortable. But here's the Machiavellian reality. Discomfort delayed is disrespect guaranteed. Let's address the question that haunts you. Why me? Why do certain people seem to attract disrespect while others move through the world untouched? The answer is brutal but liberating. You are sending signals. Your body language says, I won't fight back. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. When someone raises their voice, yours gets quieter. When someone takes up space, you shrink. These are submission displays, and human beings are exquisitely tuned to detect them. There's a concept in animal behavior called ritualized aggression. Before 2 wolves fight for dominance, they engage in a series of displays. Snarling, posturing, maintaining eye contact. Usually, one wolf backs down before violence occurs. The hierarchy is established without bloodshed. Humans do the exact same thing. We've just made it sophisticated. The interruption is a dominance display. The chronic lateness is a dominance display. The unsolicited advice, the condescending tone, the casual invasion of your boundaries, all dominance displays. And every time you accept one without pushback, you're the wolf that backed down. Now here's where it gets interesting. The people who disrespect you aren't necessarily bad people. They're often just efficient people. They've learned that they can get what they want from you without having to give much in return. You've trained them. Machiavelli observed that people are naturally inclined to take advantage of the good nature of others. This isn't cruelty, it's economics. If I can get your time, attention, and energy for free, why would I pay for it with respect? You think you're being nice. They think you're being weak. And in the cold mathematics of social dynamics, they're correct. But here's the deeper truth, the one that's harder to swallow. You're being disrespected because part of you believes you deserve it. Psychologists call this your internal working model. It's the template for relationships that was formed in childhood based on how you were treated by your earliest caregivers. If you grew up in an environment where your needs were ignored, where love was conditional, where you had to earn basic respect, you developed a tolerance for mistreatment. It feels normal to you. It feels like home. When someone treats you well, it triggers anxiety. Your nervous system says, this doesn't match the pattern, this isn't safe. So you unconsciously sabotage it, or you simply don't believe it's real. When someone treats you poorly, it triggers familiarity. Your nervous system says, ah yes, this I understand. So you stay. You try to fix it. You try to earn their approval the way you tried to earn your parents' approval. This is the thermostat. Your baseline for acceptable treatment is set too low. And until you reset it, you'll continue to attract and tolerate disrespect no matter how many techniques you learn. The good news? Thermostats can be recalibrated. But it requires you to sit in the discomfort of new boundaries until they become your new normal. When someone disrespects you, your instinct is to react. To defend yourself, to explain, to prove your worth. This is exactly what they expect. And it's exactly what keeps you powerless. Machiavelli understood that the greatest strength is often the strength to do nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you're calculating. Let me teach you the technique of strategic silence. Someone insults you at a gathering. Maybe they make a joke at your expense. Everyone laughs nervously, waiting to see how you'll respond. The old you would laugh along, minimizing the wound. Or you'd get defensive, which makes you look weak. The new you does neither. You turn your head slowly toward the person. You make eye contact. Not angry, not hurt, just present. You hold their gaze for 3 full seconds. 1, 2, 3. You don't smile. You don't scowl. Your face is a blank canvas. Then you simply look away and continue your previous conversation as if they don't exist. What you've just done is devastating. You've communicated several things simultaneously. First, I heard you. Second, what you said was so beneath me that it doesn't warrant a response. Third, you are not important enough to disrupt my reality. The silence creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so do people. In that void, their insult echoes. Everyone in the room heard it. Everyone is now uncomfortable, not with you, but with them. They've exposed themselves. Often, they'll try to recover. I was just joking, why are you so serious? This is panic. They're trying to get you to engage, to give them back the power they just lost. Don't do it. Smile slightly, as if you're amused by a child's tantrum, and move on. You've just won without saying a word. Machiavelli wrote extensively about fortune and how to control it. One of his key insights was that familiarity breeds contempt. The more available you are, the less valuable you become. When someone disrespects you, your instinct might be to try harder to win them back. To prove your worth. To show them what they're missing. This is the logic of scarcity mindset. You're trying to convince someone to value you. Here's the Machiavellian approach. Withdraw. Not dramatically. Not with announcements. You simply become less available. You stop initiating contact. You stop sharing your inner world. You become pleasant but distant, like the sun, warm but unreachable. Let me give you a concrete example. You have a friend who constantly cancels plans at the last minute, but expects you to be available whenever they call. You've expressed frustration. Nothing changed. The weak response is to have another conversation about your feelings. The Machiavellian response is to stop making plans with them. When they reach out, you're busy. Not fake busy, actually busy building a life that doesn't revolve around people who don't respect your time. After 3 or 4 times, they'll notice. Hey, are you mad at me? You've been distant. This is where most people cave. They explain, they give the person another chance, they reset the cycle. Don't do this. Instead, you might say something like, not at all. I've just been focused on priorities. The word priorities is doing heavy lifting here. You're implying they're not one, without actually saying it. You're making them wonder. You're making them work. Suddenly, the dynamic has flipped. They're pursuing you. They're proving their worth. You've become scarce, and scarcity creates value. The principle is simple. People don't value what they take for granted. Your constant availability is being taken for granted. Remove it, and watch how quickly behavior changes. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Most people misunderstand this. They think it means being cruel or tyrannical. It doesn't. It means that people need to understand there are consequences to crossing you. There's a concept in game theory called costly signaling. It's when an organism demonstrates its strength by doing something that would be impossible for a weak organism to do. A peacock's tail is costly signaling. It's saying, I'm so strong that I can afford this massive liability and still survive. Your version of costly signaling is being willing to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. From jobs. From relationships. From family members who poison your peace. But here's the key, you can't bluff. The lion doesn't roar unless it's willing to bite. Let's say you have a manager who regularly takes credit for your work. You've brought it up subtly. Nothing changed. Strategic silence won't work here because the disrespect is structural, not personal. This is where you must act. You document everything. You start sending summary emails after meetings, just to confirm, I'll be completing the X project as we discussed. You CC relevant people. You're creating a paper trail. The next time your manager presents your work as theirs, you don't cause a scene. You wait for the right moment, perhaps when a senior leader asks a question about the project that only you can answer. You answer it thoroughly, revealing your deep knowledge. The truth becomes obvious. Then, privately, you update your resume. You start interviewing. Not because you're definitely leaving, but because you need to know you can. And if the behavior continues, you leave. You take your talents somewhere they're valued. This is controlled aggression. You're not emotional about it. You're strategic. You've given them a chance to correct course. They chose not to. Now they lose you. The power isn't in threatening to leave. The power is in actually being willing to do it. Once you have one foot out the door, you stop caring about their approval. And paradoxically, that's often when they start offering you what you wanted all along. But by then, you might not want it anymore. Sometimes the disrespect is covert. Passive-aggressive comments. Backhanded compliments. Subtle digs wrapped in concern. I'm surprised you're taking on that project. It seems pretty ambitious for someone at your level. You're so brave to wear that. I could never pull it off. These statements are designed to lower your status while maintaining plausible deniability. If you call them out, they'll act shocked. I was being supportive. Here's the Machiavellian counter: weaponize curiosity. When someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, don't react emotionally. Instead, ask them to explain what they mean. Force them to unpack the insult. You're so brave to wear that. Thank you. What do you mean by brave? Watch them squirm. They have two options: admit they were insulting you, or backtrack awkwardly. Either way, you've exposed the manipulation. You've dragged the covert into the overt. Socrates used this method to destroy his opponents in debate. He'd ask seemingly innocent questions that forced them to defend increasingly absurd positions until they contradicted themselves. You're doing the same thing. You're making them say the quiet part loud. And most people, when forced to say their cruelty explicitly, will back down. The veil of civility is important to them. By refusing to let them hide behind it, you've disarmed them. This technique is particularly effective in professional settings where overt aggression is unacceptable but covert aggression is rampant. Machiavelli advised that a prince must learn to be a great pretender and dissembler. In modern terms, this means learning to match and slightly exceed the energy someone brings to you. If someone is cold to you, you become ice. If someone is warm, you become the sun. You become a mirror that reflects their treatment back to them with compound interest. Here's how this works practically. You have a colleague who only speaks to you when they need something. The rest of the time, you're invisible to them. When you need something, they're always too busy. The weak response is to keep being helpful, hoping they'll eventually reciprocate. They won't. You're training them that they can use you without cost. The Machiavellian response is to mirror their behavior exactly. When they ask for help, you're suddenly very busy. I'd love to help, but I'm swamped. Maybe next time. Said with the exact same tone they've used on you. They'll likely be surprised. Wow, you're usually so helpful. Yes, well, priorities shift. You're not being petty. You're being accurate. You're showing them what the relationship actually is: transactional. If they want access to your generosity, they need to offer something in return. Most people operate on the principle of reciprocity, but they only reciprocate with people they respect. By withdrawing your generosity, you force them to respect you if they want it back. The mirror doesn't lie. It shows them who they've been. And often, they don't like what they see. All the techniques in the world won't save you if you don't respect yourself. This is the foundation everything else is built on. Self-respect is not an affirmation you repeat in the mirror. It's not a feeling. It's a practice. It's the accumulated evidence that you keep promises to yourself. Every time you say you'll do something and you don't do it, you lose respect for yourself. You learn that your word means nothing. And if your word means nothing to you, why should it mean anything to anyone else? Start small. Tomorrow morning, if you say you're going to make your bed, make your bed. If you say you're going to the gym, go to the gym. If you say you're going to work on your project for 1 hour, work for 1 hour. No negotiations with yourself. No, I'll do it later. You said it, you do it. This is painful at first because you'll realize how often you lie to yourself. How many promises you've broken. But with each kept promise, you're laying a brick in what the Stoics called the inner citadel, the fortress of your mind that no external force can breach. When this fortress is strong, when you deeply trust yourself, other people's disrespect loses its power. It bounces off the walls. because you know who you are. You don't need their validation to confirm it. Carl Jung taught that everyone has a shadow, the parts of ourselves we've repressed because society told us they were unacceptable. Your capacity for anger, your selfishness, your potential for cruelty. You've been taught to be nice, to be agreeable, to suppress your shadow. And in doing so, you've become harmless. But here's the truth, a harmless person is not a good person. A harmless person is just a weak person. A good person is someone who is capable of harm but chooses not to inflict it. This distinction is everything. When you integrate your shadow, when you acknowledge that yes, you could be cruel, you could be destructive, you could hurt people if you chose to, you access a new kind of power. You're no longer operating from fear of conflict. You're operating from a position of choice. You're choosing to be kind, not because you're incapable of being otherwise, but because you've decided that's the kind of person you want to be. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that a prince must know how to use both the beast and the man. You must be capable of being the lion, fierce and direct, and the fox, cunning and strategic. If you're only capable of being the man, civilized and gentle, you'll be destroyed. People can sense this. They can tell when someone is genuinely dangerous but choosing restraint versus someone who's just afraid. The former commands respect. The latter invites exploitation. Think about someone you respect deeply. I guarantee you sense that they could hurt you if they wanted to. They have power, competence, strength. But they wield it responsibly. That's why you respect them. Now think about someone you don't respect. They're probably either weak and harmless, or strong but unstable and cruel. Neither version earns genuine respect. You must be the dangerous person who has chosen civilization. The armed individual who has sheathed their sword. People will see the hilt, and they will know not to test you. Machiavelli wrote The Prince for rulers, people who had their own power base. If you want to be immune to disrespect, you need your own kingdom. This doesn't mean literal political power. It means having a life that doesn't depend on any one person's approval. If your entire sense of self-worth comes from your romantic partner, you're vulnerable. They can manipulate you with the threat of leaving. If your entire identity is your job, your boss can exploit you. If all your social needs are met by one friend group, they can exclude you as punishment for stepping out of line. You need multiple sources of meaning, value, and connection. You need skills that make you valuable in the marketplace. You need a mission that exists independent of other people's opinions. You need financial stability so you're not trapped by economic necessity. This is your kingdom. And the stronger your kingdom, the less power anyone has over you. I know someone who stayed in an abusive relationship for 3 years because she had no money, no job, and nowhere to go. She tolerated constant disrespect because leaving meant homelessness. The day she got a job and saved enough for first and last month's rent, she left within a week. The disrespect didn't change. Her options did. Build your options. Build your skills. Build your savings. Build your network. Build your body and your mind. Make yourself formidable. When you know you can walk away from anything, you become free. And a free person cannot be disrespected because they can simply leave. Machiavelli was a strategist. He thought in terms of years and decades, not days and weeks. You must adopt this mindset. Handling disrespect isn't about winning individual battles. It's about establishing a reputation that precedes you. Over time, as you consistently enforce your boundaries, as you consistently demonstrate that you cannot be pushed around, people learn. Word spreads. You become known as someone who doesn't tolerate nonsense. This is reputation management, and it's one of the most powerful tools you have. Once you have this reputation, most disrespect stops before it starts. People self-select out. The ones who would have tried to use you simply don't approach. The ones who do approach come correct from the beginning. But building this reputation requires consistency. You can't set boundaries one day and let them slide the next. You can't be strong in public but weak in private. People will find the cracks. Every interaction is a brick in the cathedral of your reputation. Build carefully. The best way to handle disrespect is to prevent it from happening in the first place. This requires you to set the frame early. When you meet someone new, whether it's a first date, a new job, or a potential friendship, the first few interactions establish the dynamic. Who defers to whom? Who apologizes? Who leads? Most people are passive in these early stages. They're on their best behavior, trying to be liked. This is a mistake. You're allowing the other person to set the terms. Instead, establish your standards immediately. If someone is late to your first meeting, you address it. Not aggressively, but clearly. I value punctuality. If you're going to be late, a heads up would be appreciated. You've just communicated that your time matters. Most people won't test that boundary again. If someone makes an inappropriate joke on a first date, you don't laugh to be polite. You say, "I don't find that funny." Full stop. They can either adjust or leave. Either way, you've set the standard. This feels risky because you're worried about being seen as difficult. But here's the truth. The people who respect your boundaries early are the people worth keeping. The people who bristle at your boundaries were planning to violate them anyway. Better to find out in week 1 than year 1. Sometimes, the right move is to disappear entirely. Not as punishment, but as protection. If you're in a situation where someone is consistently disrespectful and you've tried everything else, your presence is the problem. You're giving them a target. Remove yourself. This is different from running away. This is a strategic withdrawal. You're refusing to participate in a dynamic that doesn't serve you. Machiavelli wrote about knowing when to hold your ground and when to retreat to fight another day. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people aren't worth your energy. If you have a toxic family member, you don't need to cut them off with a dramatic confrontation. You just become busy. You don't answer every call. You don't attend every gathering. You slowly fade from their orbit. They might notice. They might get upset. That's not your problem. You're protecting your peace. The same applies to friendships, work relationships, any dynamic where the cost of staying exceeds the benefit. Your time on this earth is finite. Every minute you spend with someone who disrespects you is a minute stolen from someone who would cherish you. That's the real cost. The ultimate form of power is not caring. Not in a nihilistic way, but in a liberated way. When you reach a level of self-possession where other people's opinions truly don't move you, you become untouchable. Machiavelli wrote about virtue, a kind of excellence or capability that makes you resilient against fortune's whims. When you have virtue, you don't need to control others. You control yourself, and that's enough. Someone insults you? Interesting. They're clearly in pain. Someone tries to manipulate you? Fascinating. They must feel powerless. You're no longer on the chessboard getting moved around. You're outside the game, watching with curiosity. This isn't apathy. You still care about your mission, your values, your loved ones. But the opinions and behaviors of people who don't respect you? They're just data. Information about their character, not yours. This level of indifference is earned. You can't fake it. It comes from years of building yourself up, enforcing boundaries, and realizing that you're fine whether people approve of you or not. But once you reach it, you're free in a way most people never experience. We've covered a lot of ground. Let's bring it together. Disrespect is a test. It's checking to see if you know your worth. Every time you tolerate it, you fail the test. Every time you enforce a boundary, you pass it. The Machiavellian approach isn't about being cruel or cold. It's about being strategic with your energy, your time, and your tolerance. It's about understanding human nature and responding accordingly. People respect power. Not the power to hurt them, but the power to walk away. The power to be unmoved by their manipulation. The power to control your own reactions. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't even need everyone to respect you. You just need to respect yourself enough to remove yourself from situations and people who don't serve you. Here's your assignment for the next 7 days. 1. Notice every time you feel disrespected. Don't judge it, just see it. Awareness is the first step. 2. Pick one boundary you've been avoiding and enforce it. Just one. Watch what happens. 3. Keep one promise to yourself every single day. Build that inner fortress. 4. Practice strategic silence. The next time someone says something disrespectful, don't react. Just observe them. Hold the space. 5. Begin building your kingdom. Take one action toward financial, emotional, or social independence. These 5 actions will change your life if you commit to them. Not immediately, but cumulatively. You're rewriting your neural pathways. You're teaching yourself that you're safe when you stand up for yourself. The first few times will be terrifying. Your heart will race. You might shake. Do it anyway. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of fear. And slowly, something shifts. The fear fades. It's replaced by something else. Quiet confidence. Self-possession. The knowledge that you are the architect of your own experience. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in Exile, stripped of his power, desperate to return to political life. But the wisdom in that book outlasted empires. It's still relevant 500 years later because human nature doesn't change. People are still driven by self-interest. They still test boundaries. They still respect power and exploit weakness. But you don't have to be at the mercy of these dynamics. You can learn the rules and play the game consciously. You can become the person who sets the temperature in the room, not the person who adjusts to it. You can become dangerous in your stillness, formidable in your silence, and free in your indifference. You can become the kind of person who is simply impossible to disrespect. Not because you demand respect, but because you embody it. The wolves are waiting. But you're ready. Go show them who you are.